Time travel. An interesting idea and fascinating topic. We all travel through time, all at the same direction and at the same measurable rate, always constantly moving from one moment in time to the next. Which brings up the question, are we ever truly in the present if we are constantly moving through time? In the popular TV show Legion, they theorize that there is no present, only the past and the future. Because how can we truly experience the present if there is always a difference in time from when something happens and when we intake that information? This is a very interesting thing to think about, but in this video particularly, we're going to question whether time travel is really possible and look at different movies and ways in which it has been implemented and see whether those can give us a guide as to how to make time travel truly happen. First, let's talk about some science. For the longest time, it was believed that time was constant, never changing, always the same for everyone and everything, until a man called Albert Einstein came along. You see, there was this law in physics, and it stated that there is a universal speed limit. That speed limit being the speed of light. Nothing can go faster than the speed of light. You may look at this and think to yourself, okay, that's cool. What does that have to do with time travel, though? Well, when we start to look at relativity, things begin to become interesting. Einstein wrote about this in one of his famous papers in 1905, titled On the Electrodynamics of Moving Bodies. Let's look at an example. Let's say Steve is in a train that is traveling at approximately the speed of light, and Steve, who is a very strong person, throws a ball inside this train, and he throws the ball such that its velocity becomes half the speed of light. Alex, who is outside the train and stationary, from her perspective, the train is moving at approximately the speed of light, and the ball inside the train would be moving at 1.5 times the speed of light, because you would add the speed of the ball plus the speed of the train. But wait a minute, I just said that the maximum speed limit for the universe is the speed of light, meaning that Alex can't possibly see this ball going at 1.5 times the speed of light. So let's take a look at the speed equation for a second. Speed is distance over time. And since we know that the speed cannot change in this scenario, that means that the distance and the time must change in order to keep the speed constant. Meaning that Alex, who is outside the train, experiences time differently than Steve, who is inside the train. In fact, time for Steve is being experienced at a slower rate than Alex. So once Steve, who threw the ball inside the train, gets out and goes into the frame of reference as Alex, who is stationary, Steve has technically traveled into the future faster than Alex. This is crazy because theoretically we could now travel into the future way further than our life expectancy and see the generations that come way after us. The greatest problem with this is going to such a high speed would be basically impossible, mainly because of how much energy it would require. Now let's take a look into time travel movies. Speed was actually a key factor in one of the most popular movie series of all time, Back to the Future. In these films, the Doc creates a time travel machine out of a DeLorean, and if it's gotten to 88 miles per hour, then it's able to time travel. While this idea is fascinating, it's not quite feasible. This movie mostly marks time travel as fiction, but the fact that speed was a necessary part and important part of the time travel mechanics was very cool and interesting. Also, an important thing to note is that time travel situation that I demonstrated earlier with the trains does not account for time travel into the past. It's only showing how we can travel into the future. But is traveling into the past possible? Well, there may be another way to time travel. Let's take a look into another movie. The directors of this movie, Joe and Anthony Russo, claim to have brought experts to help them have accurate science to explain time travel. I'm obviously talking about none other than Avengers Endgame. In this movie, the main variable in time travel is the quantum realm. The quantum realm is the subatomic world, looking at the smallest atoms and particles, basically the world in which quantum mechanics is the most accurate science. In my last video, I talked a little bit about quantum mechanics. Now let me dive a little bit more into it. Basically, in this quantum realm, nothing makes sense. Many scientists and physicists who have studied quantum mechanics have often been left baffled and confused by its nature. Roger Penrose once said, "Quantum mechanics makes absolutely no sense." Richard Feynman said, "I think I can safely say that nobody understands quantum mechanics." John Wheeler said, "If you are not completely confused by quantum mechanics, you don't understand it." So it's obvious that quantum mechanics isn't exactly the easiest thing to understand. One of the confusing elements when it comes to quantum mechanics is position and time. For example, let's say Lily wanted to meet Oliver. She gave him directions for a ball, and they agreed to meet there at noon. To us, this is a very straightforward and normal thing. However, in the quantum realm, position and time wouldn't exactly be helpful because it's possible to go left while going right. It's possible for Oliver to be at the mall while still being at home. It's possible to arrive at the mall before actually arriving at the mall. You're probably wondering, what? That's crazy. Exactly. Exactly. It's very crazy and confusing. So the premise in Avengers Endgame is that our heroes will shrink into this quantum realm and somehow navigate it and exit at a different place in time. But how exactly do they navigate this place? Well, they actually do have a scene explaining this. Tony Stark figured it out. And you also might be wondering, how exactly do they become this ball? Well, they use the science from the Ant-Man series, and unfortunately, there are some faults in the science because in the movie, they describe that there is always distance between atoms, and by reducing that distance, they can become smaller. This logically makes complete sense. But falls apart when you try to become smaller than an atom, which is what they try to do when they go into the quantum realm. But if there was somehow a way to become that small and navigate through the quantum realm and come out at a different time and place, then maybe time travel is possible. But right now, that's just a theory. I have no idea how someone would test that, and if it's not testable, then it's more of a philosophy than science. Many scientists have tried to test time travel. For example, Stephen Hawking threw a party and only sent out invitations after the party had already happened. And since no one attended the party, he argued that time travel doesn't exist. And he may be right. But I don't believe that we have enough information to completely say that time travel does or doesn't exist. Thanks for watching the video, everyone. If you enjoyed it, please consider subscribing and also liking the video. And I would also really like to hear what you guys think, so please write your thoughts in the comments and I'll reply to all of them. Thank you guys, and I'll see you in the next video.